double whiteboard. I would get a lot of use out of this if I were back in the at the language school teaching this class in a classroom instead of in cyberspace. But yeah, I will definitely demonstrate my note-taking style with you on our whiteboard, and you can still, you can still take notes in your own way. You also have to know how to summarize and report key ideas from the readings and the lectures and conversations. You have to know how to support your ideas with examples, reasons, and details. Okay, now that triangle only applies to number 5. Okay, that's one thing I want to get out there right now. In number 1 and number 2, you were giving your opinion. In the integrated writing, you're going to be doing mostly summarizing. That's the skill. You have to know how to summarize. Except there's one part of number 5. You're going to be summarizing a problem, 2 solutions, but the question will ask you, what do you think the man should do, or what do you think the woman should do, and why? So 15 seconds or 20 seconds or a little longer from your number 5 response will involve you giving your opinion and supporting it with reasons. But aside from that 15-second or 20-second portion of number 5, everything else in the integrated speaking responses will be a summary. It will not be your own opinion or your own ideas. And finally, you have to know how to deliver a clear, well-organized response based on the information in the readings as well as the lectures or conversations. Okay? And the reason they say lectures/conversations, because on the integrated writing, 2 of these are very academic and 2 of these are more informal. They're less formal. So tasks 3 and 5 are informal. They're called campus situations. So in 3 and 5, when we do the reading, it's not going to be something you would find in a college textbook. It's going to be like a bulletin a college student might see, posted in his dormitory hallway. Or it's going to be a new policy about plagiarism that the professors might pass out in the classrooms. So it's not going to be so academic with really thick language. It's going to be informal writing that you will have to read, and then the conversations will usually be just informal conversations between 2 people, usually 2 students, sometimes a student and a professor. Now, numbers 4 and 6, totally different. The even-numbered integrated tasks are more formal. They're academic. Okay? And when you get your score report, those of you who have taken the TOEFL before, and it's kind of confusing, your speaking is broken up into 3 areas. Familiar topics, that would be a combination of your score from 1 and 2. And then it says campus situations, that would be the average of your 2 scores for 3 and 5. And finally, I think it says academic tasks, something like that. That's the average of your 2 speaking scores for numbers 4 and 6. Okay? All right. Let's turn the page over, and you see a nice chart on 434. This is a chart that you can come back to many times as you're studying, okay? Or if you're working with another TOEFL student, you want to show them. This gives you a pretty good background on each of the 4 integrated speaking tasks, starting with number 3, and this book calls it the announcement discussion task, because we have to read an announcement or a memo or some kind of bulletin, and then we listen to students talk about it, and then we have to report their opinion, one of the person's opinion. Number 4 is we call the general specific task. Remember, this is academic. So the little reading passage, it'll just be about 1 paragraph about some academic subject. Could be any subject from the sciences, social sciences, could be biology, history, psychology, sociology, marine biology, could be anything, okay? But it'll be just 1 paragraph of general information that we read, and then we'll be listening to a professor lecture on a specific example within that general category. So we have to make the connection there. Number 5, as I mentioned, is the problem solution task. 2 people, usually 2 students, or a student and someone who works at the university, will be having a conversation, just usually informal. One of the persons will have a problem, and the second person in the conversation will offer 2 solutions. or two options. And we'll have to summarize that, and you'll have to give your personal opinion. What do you think the person with the problem, sometimes it's the man, sometimes it's the woman, you'll have to say what you think he or she should do and why, in addition to your summary. And finally, number 6, which is just simply called the summary task. It's very straightforward, but unfortunately many students find it quite difficult. It's all lecture. There's no reading material. It's an academic lecture. Again, it could be from any subject area that you might take at college, just like number 4. However, it's a much longer lecture. It's over 2 minutes, 2 minutes and 15 seconds, 2.5 minutes. You have to take all of it, and you have to boil it down to 1 minute. You have to summarize. You have to pull out all the key points, but they also want you to use some of the specific examples. So it's kind of a summary plus. It's a little bit of an expanded summary, and we'll be practicing that as well. Okay. Let us see. I want to skip over some of this other material for now. We will come back to it. Without any more interruption, I want to get us right to the main course for tonight's TOEFL meal in the speaking area, which is the integrated speaking preview test. If you remember, in lesson 1, we did the independent speaking preview test, which was just one example of number 1. I believe it was the person who's most influential in your life, who has been influential. And number 2 was whether you prefer the traditional grading system or the pass-fail system. So we did the independent preview test. Now we're going to do the integrated preview test. So unlike the preview test we took last week in reading and listening, this one is broken into 2 separate pieces. Okay, it begins on page 439, and also we're going to need our audio files. Now, as I was doing last week, I will play the audio files directly from my computer through my external speakers, not into my headset. That wouldn't help you. They'll come out of the speakers, and I'll crank up the volume pretty loudly. So I think that worked pretty well. And the reason I know that is because I replay the lessons and listen to at least parts of them. It's hard to listen to myself for 2 hours, but it's kind of weird. But anyway, that should work. If you have the CDs and you feel more comfortable playing them directly, and maybe the sound quality is a little better, you can go ahead and do that.